Hello students, today we're going to be looking at solving absolute value equations. So this is the foldable we're going to be using. So let's just briefly review what is absolute value. You probably learned about it in middle school, maybe a little bit in Algebra 1. And it basically means the distance from zero that a number is. Okay, so absolute value is the distance from zero. So for example, if I said the absolute value of x equals 5, well, what are some things x could be? So if I just think about my number line, here's 0. And I want numbers that are 5 spaces away from 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So 5 and negative 5 are both 5 spaces away from 0. So x could be 5 or negative 5. Okay. Because if you take the absolute value of 5, that's of course still 5. And also the absolute value of negative 5 is still 5. Okay, so just kind of a brief review from middle school. Hopefully you remember that. So when you have an equation with x in it that is in an absolute value, you could have two different solutions like this one did. So it had the two solutions, 5 and negative 5. You could have only one solution, and we'll see that one of those down here. Or it could have no solutions at all, and we'll see one of those as well. Okay, so let's just try these first couple. So if I have the absolute value of x equals 3, then what could x be? Well, x could be positive 3, because 3 is 3 spaces away from 0. Or x could be negative 3, because negative 3 is 3 spaces away from 0. Okay, and that one has two solutions. Okay, so number 2, if I have the absolute value of x equals 1.5, then x could be 1.5, or x could be negative 1.5. And please forgive my little scribble right there. You do not need that. All right, number 3, if the absolute value of a number x is 0, then what could the number be? Well, the number is 0, because 0 is 0 spaces away from 0. Okay, there's no need to say or x equals negative 0, because that's still the same number. All right, now look at number 4, which says the absolute value of x equals negative 7. Now, since absolute value is a distance from 0, you can't really have a negative distance. Distance is always expressed as a positive number. So if this is asking me what number is negative 7 distance away from 0, it doesn't really make any sense. So in this case, I have no solution. So anytime you have absolute value of something equals a negative, that's going to be no solution. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind in general. All right, now let's look at one or two that are a little bit more complicated. Okay, so look at the first example at the top. We've got the absolute value of x minus 1 equals 3. Okay, so it kind of looks like what we had before. Let's just quickly flip back. Kind of looks like this, where we just took the right side of the equation and we had a positive or a negative. So we're going to do the same thing here. Okay, so the right side of my equation is 3. So that means x minus 1 could be 3, or x minus 1 could also be negative 3, because it could be 3 spaces in the other direction. Okay, now all we have here is two linear equations, which hopefully you remember how to solve. So x minus 1 equals 3, add 1 to both sides. Oops. Whoops, don't cross that out. My bad. But do cross those out because they cancel. So then x equals 4. Or we're going to do the same thing here. Add 1 to both sides. Don't cancel that. So then x equals negative 2. Okay, so then there's my solution. All right, one more example. In this case, it's a little bit more complicated still. We don't just have the absolute value on the left. We also have a plus 2. So we're going to have to take care of that. All right, and then solve for x. So step 1, use order of operations, Pemdas, in reverse to isolate the absolute value. So first we want to add or subtract anything outside the absolute value. So in this case, I have absolute value of 3x plus 2 equals 8, and I need to cancel out this 2. Okay, so I'm going to do that by subtracting 2 from both sides. Those cancel out. And so I have absolute value of 3x equals 6. Okay. Now, if I had anything else to multiply or divide that was outside, like say if I had a number in front of here, I would divide that out next, but I don't really have anything, so I can skip that step. Okay. All right. So now I've got the absolute value isolated. So I just have an absolute value on the left, nothing else. So I'm going to go ahead and split the equation just like I did up there. I'm going to split it into 2, where one equals a positive 6 and the other equals a negative 6. Okay, and you're always going to split it that way for absolute value. You're always going to split the left side equals this number, and the left side equals negative that number. Okay? All right, so I've got my 2 equations. The next thing I want to do is, now that I'm inside the grouping symbol, I'm inside where those parentheses would have been, I want to add or subtract anything from the left. And in this case, I don't have anything. I have a multiplication, but I do not have addition or subtraction. No plus or minus. Okay, so I can skip that step. Go to the next step. Okay, so I still have my same 2 equations, 3x equals 6 or 3x equals negative 6. And finally, I need to multiply or divide anything that was inside the absolute value. So in this case, I had 3x. So I'm just going to divide both sides by 3 on both equations, because those will cancel out. And then I have x equals 2 or x equals negative 2. Okay, and then that's it. Then I'm done. So my solution is x equals 2 or x equals negative 2. And you could write that a little bit shorter like this. X equals plus or minus 2. And there you go.